the last component of the webinar, and I'm going to hand you back over to my co-host Jacqui Meyer. Jacqui, if you want to turn on yours. And also Roger Poole will also, although he's not mentioned, will be featuring in this segment. So I will hand over to you, Jacqui. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Katie. I'm just quickly wanting to, actually, I'm not going to share my screen. So yeah, thank you to all the ladies for such great presentations. It's amazing just how you kind of think like, okay, pesticide research, that must just be the same old testing things, but actually it's a whole lot more than that. And so I think it's quite exciting, the research that we have going forward. So our last segment is called 2024 and beyond. So I'm going to invite Roger to step in here. He has got a presentation. We kind of joke sometimes half-heartedly, not really, that TIPWG is not actually only just about pesticides anymore. It has evolved to being more about RPM than about pesticides alone. So I think with that in mind, we're going to hand over to Roger as a bit of a glimpse as to how things may look going forward. Thanks, Roger.
Thanks, Jacqui. Let me just quickly share my screen. Okay, I'm hoping everyone can see that. We've been having a lot of chats with various companies, and we started building relationships with Animat Madumbi, who were originally just Madumbi, and then they had PHP, who were doing lots of R&D work into biologicals. And I had a chat with them just to get an idea of where biologicals are and where we've come from. So the following is a mix of slides that's been put together, and we will just quickly talk through them. I won't bore all of you on the gravy session, but just to give you an idea where we are between biologicals and the good old conventionals. This is just a slide to show you where R&D started off, and Madumbi have been honest to say they were one of the first companies. So they had a bit of a monopoly. And they are now sitting in a growth stage, and there are quite a few companies now doing biologicals, and they are slowly growing, and they are hoping to get to a point of maturity. And then, of course, things change, and there will be a decline, as we are seeing now with conventionals. This slide just shows you currently the conventional plant protection market is still 95%, but the biologicals are taking a 5% of that, which doesn't sound like much, but it is a fair chunk that's coming from that. And you'll see a big chunk of within the biologicals is organics, and we tend to get a confusion between biological and organics. And as I put here, organics is only a 10% of the biologicals market, but it has to be certified. And I think that's where a lot of people don't realize just the sensitivity around organics. You can't just say you're organic if you aren't certified. And if we look at developments, in conventionals and biologicals, yes, we're not doing very well on the herbicide side of things, and we've seen with biological control for invasive aliens, it starts to work, then it doesn't work. But you'll notice the big difference is sitting on insecticides and fungicides, which is mainly in the agriculture area, and especially in your fruit and vegetables. And there has been a noticeable increase. And if you look at the conventional market, where it is now 20%, and where biologicals are, we're sitting at 76%. And this has happened because of pressure from mainly Europe and reductions in the maximum residue levels, where farmers are now having to look at biological and bringing it into their programs and looking at RPM seriously, because they won't be able to sell their product if the residue level isn't correct. So this is where biologicals are coming in. Row crops, other crops, they're still developing, and we fall in between row crops and other crops. So if you have a look, where we're sitting, conventional growth is only 5%, but your biologicals, it's a 16% growth. So the market is getting bigger out there. And the reason for the growth, the farmer, or you can call the grower, is getting a better understanding of the products, is seeing the results from using them. And it's pressure as well, as I mentioned, public pressure. There's also pressure out there from environmental groups for people wanting less pesticides being used, and we are seeing this growth. Okay, we joined with Animat in the early days. But just to give you an idea, this is the Endomet group, and they are right throughout the world. The advantage we're looking at this is we've got places where there is forestry. We've been chatting about stuff that's in Canada that we could possibly look at for South Africa, especially when it comes to Lepidoptera. So we're looking at all of this, and we want to try and further this whole thing to get more biologicals and get more RPM in. So this is where TIPWG is changing slightly. Growth in biologicals, as you guys can see, where they started in 2015, here we are in 23, and we're sitting at over R1 million turnover. So it is a huge change. Driving factors on these biosolutions, we are looking at bans on 1A and 1Bs, and we've mentioned this before, and it's a reality, unfortunately. June 24, they're going to come in and they're going to say all 1As and 1Bs are actually now officially banned. And it's not coming from Act 36. This is coming from Department of Health. And we have to lose those. Fortunately, we're not losing as much as agriculture is losing, but we are losing some, as in wattle rust. We don't have a replacement. So we've got fun and games on that one. Soil conditions, and it's something that we've discussed and toiled around. There is definitely a decline in our soils and their health, and this is causing problems where what happens is we use more synthetic fertilizers, more pesticides to try and get our crops. Extensive farming practices. Yes, we are pushing the boundaries. We are over extending our farming practices, and we need to relook at those and how to get it better and more healthier. Growing consumer concern, as I mentioned, everyone's looking at what's in their food now. And there's more and more information on packaging, so people are getting a lot more knowledgeable on these things. Global pressure, we now know what's happening with all the COP meetings, and if we look now at Europe, what they want to try and push with the EU DR. So these things are all going to play effect on us. And return on investments. A grower wants to make sure he's going to get more money from that same hectare, and he has to find a way of doing that because we're not getting more and more area to plant, especially with us in forestry. So growers are looking at everything. I always say to myself, no disrespect to farmers, but a farmer is not going to do something if he doesn't get a return on it. He's not just going to throw money at something if he's not going to get back at it. And I look at the stuff that I follow on biologicals. It's becoming more and more part of everyone's lives, and the farmers, predominantly, yes, in our orchards and our vineyards, but they are getting the results, and they're starting to move into other crops as well, where you can see the difference. This is just a quick slide for you to have a look at. When we say biological products, there's a multitude of them out there. You know, we've got the biofertilizers, there are stimulants. Then we go into control products, we've got the biopesticides. There's a whole lot out there. So there's a big drive into research on these things. It's not just a simple this product or that product. There's a lot more out there for us to look at. This is one of their RPM flow diagrams. In a way, it's very similar to the one we've got with FSC, and it's a whole thought process to work through and look at. And this is what we have to get to. As I say in this one here, crop protection is an art and a science and a business. So all those link together, and we have to do something to keep going and benefit from where we are. In the RPM, it's an approach to manage pests in an economically viable way, socially as well, and environmentally friendly. So what I'm saying here is I can't see us ever getting away from conventionals, but there's a place where the two will work together and give us an ultimate source in our crops. So if we look at commercial opportunities, we're looking at seed, host plant resistance, cultural controls, microbials, the CMO chemicals, physical, mechanical controls. All of these, for those of you that have gone through the RPM with FSC, you'll see a lot of this popping up in decision making, and it's there, something we need to have a look at and try and prove and use far better for our advantage. The benefits, they are becoming a lot more effective. There's a better understanding on how to apply them. The residues are a big thing, especially in edible crops. And yeah, we're getting quite close to having our trees being eaten. So we need to look at those kind of things. There are different modes of action. And this is something we talk about in pesticides as well. But unfortunately, for us, with our limited list that we're allowed to use within forestry, we are discovering that we don't have a variety of different modes of actions within our pesticides. And this is one thing we can start to look at and do with biologicals. Lifespans, we can look at those and see how we can increase them. It's something to look at. Less toxic is an important factor, especially from the environmental side and from the applicators, because that's a big factor within FSC, is how do we minimize the exposure of the products to the person that's applying them, or to the neighbor, or to stakeholders next door. That's something we have to have a look at. Added advantages, and I've seen this, there's some photographs I'll show you guys later. Plant health is a huge thing. I think if we can get ourselves healthy trees, we will start to see less pests, less diseases. We have a long way to go with this, but it's something to definitely consider. Success factors for us to look at for adopting into forestry is to focus on the products that are here, the development, to see how we can get them with forestry labels and to fit in certification, which shouldn't be an issue for certification, but we've got to get the registration right. We need to build confidence in this technology. It's still a new technology. A lot of work done in forestry hasn't quite given us the results we want, but we need to have a better understanding of it and learn how it actually works. The mind shift, which goes along with the same one. We need to look at this whole thing in the big picture. Not just synthetics anymore, but bring in biologicals as well. Product stewardship in the industry, it's something that happens with pesticides. It also happens here, and good quality products are always what we look for. Well-researched, registered, standard. And have products on there that are going to show us this rate on investment, the return on investment, sorry. It's something that we're all looking at. We're not getting bigger areas to plant, so we've got to improve what we can get off that same hectare without depleting that hectare, which is a big thing. These are some photographs up in the northern Natal area in Gumbi or Port Petersburg. These were planted in November 2023. They standard Grandis seedling and wattle seedling on the right side. They had 3 biological products added to them along with the planting gel. And the history up there, this time last year, they were having a lot of dry spells. It wasn't working very, very well weather-wise. And they've added these products at planting. I'm just going to quickly, if you excuse me, I just need to get my note here where I write them down because I've never. So the products used were Echo T, Marco Up, and a V12 Initiate. And for about 3 months growth is what we got here, more or less, give or take. This is absolutely amazing. And I'm not saying that there hasn't been any pests or diseases, but if you take a look at these plants, how they've grown in 3 months, canopy on these are going to be 18 months, say 24 months, which is a lot shorter than what we normally do. So from a pesticide point of view, we're going to have canopy closure. Straight away, it's going to get dark. It's going to start suppressing the grasses, the weeds. There are going to be savings in your costs as well as savings in the amount of pesticides you're going to be using. So there are advantages in this, and I think this is the way we need to have a look at these things going forward. Blinkers off, look at this whole thing. Might work for some, might not work for others, but it's an opportunity we've got here, and I think it's something we need to definitely consider. Everyone looks for a silver bullet. There are no silver bullets, not even in pesticides. We're always wanting, something goes wrong, we want a result now. We haven't got that. It's a long-term thing. We need to have a look at it. So it's just one of those use it, don't use it moments, but it's something to plant the seed and let people think about it. That's it. Thank you, Jacqui.
Thanks, Roger.
Oh, yes, yes.
Right, I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, so 2024 and beyond. As we all know, the threat to pesticide usage is an ever-increasing one. Between social media mayhem, the misunderstanding of how pesticides work, and the unfortunate but very real lack of compliance from some users, giving pesticide usage a bad name, we have our work cut out for us. In addition to this, there is a lot of pressure from governments, from various environmental and social bodies to reduce the number of pesticides available, particularly those with potential harm to environment and to humans. So, what can we do about this? Well, we can keep our noses clean. In other words, we can comply with the various legislative and certification requirements, and we can be proactive. This means actively looking for less harmful, more specific alternatives and being creative about how we practice IPM. Because let's face it, it's not just about pesticides, it's about IPM. With regards to legal and certification compliance, TIPWG strives to stay up to date with any impeding changes. We communicate those that will affect the industry on various platforms, with as much time as is possible to implement any necessary changes. We also strive to make these compliance requirements as easy to understand and implement as possible. Just look at our SOPs, and this is something that we will continue to do. With regards to being proactive, TIPWG engages in various collaborations and in research to keep up to date with new technology, to ensure forestry industry voice is heard, and to aid investigation and registration of new potential products coming into the market. This too is an ongoing effort. So the saying goes, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is one bite at a time. So I urge you all to do a self-audit and identify where the gaps are in your IPM program. List these and then tackle them one at a time until you are compliant. Then review your system again and see where there's room for improvements. Rinse, repeat. Small, consistent changes really add up in the long run, so you don't actually have to eat the whole elephant in one sitting. As for TIPWG, it'll be business as usual. We'll be updating our ESRAs so that they're in line with the GHS compliant labels and SDSs. This means that the ESRAs will shift from an active ingredient based to product based. We'll be doing the APL as discussed earlier. We're also in the process of developing some guidelines, particularly stakeholder consultation and pesticide buffers. Research will also be business as usual with our 2 FSIF projects presented so well by the ladies. And various collaborations will continue as usual too. We'll participate in all FSC SDG consultations on behalf of the industry and any other consultations that also require our input. Once the new FSC standard has been finalized, understanding this and implications of our industry, and this applies to the SAFAS review too, which is also due to be done. And then constant communication to industry players in various platforms, such as this one, to educate, inform, and consult with all of the role players. But you might find more focus on these roles as discussed earlier, as TIPWG's role evolves and as the industry evolves. So TIPWG will be here to continue to support you, to be your voice, and maybe even your conscience as we step forward into 2024 and beyond. And I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you to Forestry South Africa, to the TIPWG team, being Katie, Yolanda, and Roger, to Aidan Charles from Narrative Lab, who was our guru behind the scenes, Richard from FSC and all the SDG members, the research team who all presented, our sponsors, Andermatt and Silvex, and then, of course, all of you who have come to join us today in our first ever TIPWG webinar. We really appreciate you guys taking the time out to join us and looking forward to getting some feedback from you if there's anything that we've missed out and we can potentially help with. We're here to help you, so we're looking forward to that positive feedback.